My aunt kicked me out after I paid for everything, but my revenge exposed the truth. This is my story. A story about family, betrayal, and what it takes to finally break free. When people talk about family, they talk about love, safety, and trust. But my family was different. My family was a battlefield. And the one who controlled the battlefield was my aunt, Victoria. From the outside, Victoria was admired. She had the kind of smile that fooled strangers, the kind of laugh that made people believe she was warm. She knew how to play the role of a perfect woman, a perfect mother, a perfect sister. But behind closed doors, she ruled with cruelty. She decided who mattered, who didn't, and who was disposable. And for as long as I can remember, I was disposable. I was born into a house that looked normal from the outside. A small, quiet neighborhood, a place where kids played in yards and neighbors waved at each other from porches. But once you stepped inside my family's house, you felt the tension in the walls. My mother was gentle, too gentle. She tried to hold everything together, even as her own heart was breaking. My father, well, he didn't stay. He walked out of my life when I was only 9 years old. One morning he was there, the next he was gone. And that was the day Victoria tightened her grip. She said to my mother, loudly enough so I could hear, "Maybe if you had been a better wife, he would have stayed." Her words sank into me like poison. I started to believe it was somehow our fault, my fault. Victoria loved those moments, breaking people down when they were weakest. And once she saw a crack, she kept pressing until you shattered. Her children, Jason and Chloe, were her golden ones. Jason was the star athlete. Chloe was the sweet little singer in every school recital, and Victoria made sure the world saw them that way. At every gathering, Jason and Chloe received mountains of attention, gifts, praise, hugs, applause. Me, I got the leftovers if I got anything at all. I remember one Thanksgiving. The table was overflowing with food. Roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy, pies lined up like trophies. Victoria served Jason first, then Chloe, then herself. By the time the plates reached me, the food was cold, the choices almost gone. I looked up, waiting for someone to notice. Victoria's eyes met mine. She smirked and said, "Don't be greedy, Emily. Be thankful you're getting anything at all." The room laughed. That laugh, it echoed inside me for years. It wasn't just the sound, it was the message. You don't matter, you'll never matter. Christmases were worse. One year, Jason got a brand new bike. Chloe got a beautiful dollhouse, 2 stories tall with tiny furniture and lights inside. Victoria made sure every relative saw them open their gifts. Cameras flashing, everyone cheering. When my turn came, Victoria handed me a single package. I opened it, heart pounding, hoping maybe this year would be different. Inside was a secondhand sweater, too big for me, with a stain near the collar. Victoria smiled and said, "It's practical, you need to be practical." The room laughed again. That was the rhythm of my childhood. Jason and Chloe raised high, celebrated like royalty. Me, humiliated, silenced, treated like a shadow. But the worst part wasn't the gifts or the food. The worst part was the lies. Victoria whispered lies about me to everyone she could. She told relatives I was ungrateful. She told neighbors I was a troublemaker. She even told people I stole from Jason and Chloe, lies that cut deeper than any insult. And the more she repeated them, the more people believed. Suddenly, I was fighting battles I didn't even start, defending myself against things I never did. I tried to explain. I begged people to see me for who I really was. But Victoria's poison spread faster than my words could heal. At school, I found myself pulling away from friends, ashamed, afraid they had heard the lies too. At home, I stayed silent, careful not to trigger Victoria's wrath. And in the middle of it all was my mother. She worked hard, 2 jobs, long hours. She told me to ignore Victoria. She told me to be strong, but she never stopped Victoria. She never stood in her way. And because of that, I felt alone. Completely, utterly alone. Still, somewhere deep inside, I held on to a tiny spark, a hope that one day I'd escape. That spark kept me alive through years of humiliation. But it would take something far worse, something unforgettable, to finally make me realize just how much power Victoria had stolen from me. That moment came on my 18th birthday. My 18th birthday should have been a turning point. The day I stepped into adulthood, the day I finally felt seen. But Victoria made sure it was just another reminder of who held the power. I had been saving for months. Every coin I earned from babysitting, every dollar from tutoring younger kids, I kept hidden in a box under my bed. All I wanted was something simple, a cake I could call mine, a cake that wasn't chosen by Victoria, a cake that didn't come with strings attached. The day arrived. I picked up a small chocolate cake from the bakery, nothing fancy, just sweet and mine. My mother smiled, proud that I had done it on my own. She hugged me tighter than usual, whispering, "Happy birthday, Emily, you deserve this." But then Victoria arrived. She swept into the room like she owned it, Jason and Chloe trailing behind with their perfect smiles. And in her hands was a massive cake, layered high with frosting and covered in bright candles. She placed it in the center of the table, right in front of everyone. When it was time to cut, Victoria clapped her hands and said, "Jason, why don't you blow out the candles for Emily? You're better at making wishes." The room laughed. Jason leaned forward, full of pride, and blew them out. My candles, my wish, gone in an instant. Everyone clapped and cheered as if it were a game, but inside I broke. I excused myself, ran to my room, and pressed my face into the pillow to muffle the sobs. I cried for hours that night, the sound of their laughter burning in my ears. And when the tears finally stopped, something inside me hardened. I whispered to myself, "No more." The months that followed were suffocating. Victoria seemed to sense the shift in me, the small rebellion growing in my chest. She doubled her efforts to break me. Every conversation turned into a test, every family gathering a stage for my humiliation. "Emily, why can't you be more like Chloe?" she would sneer. "Emily, don't embarrass your mother. Emily, you'll never survive on your own." The words repeated like a mantra, until some days I almost believed them. But other days, they lit a fire under me. I started writing more. Journals filled with my anger, my shame, my secret dreams. Late at night, I scribbled under the covers with a flashlight, pouring every wound onto the page. Writing became my rebellion. It was the one place Victoria couldn't touch. When college applications came around, I applied in secret. Victoria had always said, "You'll never get in anywhere. You're not smart enough, not talented enough. Be realistic." But I refused to let her words be the final truth. Weeks passed. I checked the mailbox every day, heart racing. And then one afternoon, there it was. The envelope with my name on it. Hands trembling, I ripped it open and read the words, "Congratulations, you've been accepted." I pressed the letter to my chest and cried, but this time they were tears of relief, of hope. I had done it. I had carved a path out. Of course, I didn't tell Victoria, not yet. If she knew, she would find a way to ruin it. She always did. The months leading up to my departure were the hardest. Victoria seemed to grow sharper, her words cutting deeper. She must have sensed I was slipping away, and she couldn't stand the thought of losing control. "Family is everything," she told me over and over. "Without family, you're nothing. Remember that, Emily, nothing." I smiled politely, nodded, and walked away. But inside, I repeated my own mantra. I am something, and soon I'll be free. Finally, the day came. I packed my bags in secret. My mother hugged me so tight I thought she'd never let go. Tears filled her eyes, but she whispered, "Go, live your life, don't look back." As I reached the door, Victoria appeared, arms crossed, eyes sharp. She blocked my path like a guard at a prison gate. "You'll never make it," she hissed. "You'll come crawling back, they all do." But I didn't flinch. For the first time in my life, I looked her in the eyes and said, "Watch me." I walked past her, heart pounding, legs shaking, but every step felt like a victory. The air outside smelled different, fresher. For the first time, I could breathe. The city was hard. Rent drained me, jobs were scarce, and loneliness hit me at night like a wave. But even in the struggle, I felt alive. Every small victory, paying rent on time, cooking my own meals, finding a friend, was mine, truly mine. Victoria didn't disappear, of course. She called often, leaving messages dripping with false concern. Emily, your mother worries. Emily, Jason just bought a new car. Emily, Chloe is performing again. What about you? At first, the messages made me doubt myself. Maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't enough. But then I remembered the laughter, the humiliation, the stolen candles, the empty plates. And I refused to let her voice be the one that defined me. So I stopped answering her calls. I stopped letting her words live rent-free in my head. That silence became my shield. But as I was building my new life, I had no idea that Victoria's empire was beginning to crumble. And soon, I would discover that the very people she once raised above me were starting to feel the same weight I had carried my whole life. This is the third and final part of my story. By now, the scars of my family's toxic past had already shaped me into someone both cautious and strong. But I had no idea how much darker things could get before they finally ended. When I turned 18, I left for college. I thought freedom would mean peace. For a while, it did. But even at a distance, Victoria found ways to reach me. Emails dripping with guilt. Phone calls where she cried, telling me I was abandoning the family. Packages with small gifts that smelled like home, wrapped in strings of manipulation. At first, I answered, out of guilt, out of habit, but I learned quickly. Every "I miss you" came with a hidden blade. "Emily," she would say, her voice dripping with sugar, "you're so lucky to be studying while I'm left here taking care of everything. Don't you think you owe me a little gratitude?" By gratitude, she meant money, or silence, or unquestioning loyalty. And when I stopped giving her those things, she turned the rest of the family against me. Jason and Chloe sent me messages filled with accusations. "You're selfish. You think you're better than us. Mom sacrificed everything for you, and this is how you repay her." It broke me for a time. I cried myself to sleep in a tiny dorm room, wondering if maybe I really was the problem. But then I remembered years of birthdays stolen, years of lies, years of watching my father's absence weaponized against me. No, I wasn't the problem. Victoria was. College gave me distance, but it also gave me perspective. I made real friends. I saw what healthy families looked like, laughing together without knives hidden in their words. It was then I understood. Love doesn't demand obedience. Love doesn't thrive on fear. I began to rebuild myself piece by piece. I studied hard. I took jobs that made me independent. I wrote down every painful memory in journals so the poison wouldn't live inside me anymore. And slowly, the guilt began to lift. Then, one winter break, I came home. Against my better judgment, I thought maybe enough time had passed. Maybe we could talk like human beings. The house was the same, perfect on the outside, rotten inside. Victoria greeted me with her fake warmth. "Emily," she cooed, arms wide. "Finally, you've come back to where you belong." Her perfume was suffocating. At dinner, she wasted no time. "You've been away, living your little life," she said, her smile sharp. "Meanwhile, Jason and Chloe have been struggling. If you really cared about this family, you'd help them out." Jason kept his eyes down, but Chloe nodded eagerly. "Yes, Emily, Mom's right. You have everything now. It's only fair." Fair. The word burned in my chest. I remembered birthdays canceled so Jason could shine. I remembered gifts ripped from my hands to be given to Chloe. I remembered every sacrifice I had been forced to make while Victoria called it fair. I put my fork down. "No," I said quietly. The table went silent. Victoria blinked as if no one had ever dared to deny her before. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice ice cold. "I said no," I repeated, louder this time. "I don't owe you, I don't owe Jason, I don't owe Chloe, I never did." Jason finally looked up, anger flashing in his eyes. "You're tearing this family apart," he hissed. "No," I said, my hands trembling but firm. "This family was broken a long time ago. I'm just refusing to bleed for it anymore." Victoria slammed her hand on the table. "You ungrateful little," she spat. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me." I stood up, shaking but unyielding. "Everything you've done for me," I whispered. "You mean the lies, the stolen childhood, the guilt you wrapped around my neck like chains." Her face twisted, rage pouring out of her like venom. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I left that night. I walked out of the house, leaving their shouts echoing behind me. The cold air hit my face, and for the first time, I felt free. It wasn't easy after that. Victoria still tried to call, to write, to send others to guilt me back into her world. But I never answered. I built a life without her shadow. A life with people who chose me, not because I obeyed, but because I was me. Jason and Chloe stayed with her for years, but eventually even they began to see the cracks. Chloe reached out once, years later, whispering through tears, "You were right, she's destroying us." I held her hand. I told her it wasn't too late to leave. As for Victoria, she never changed. People like her rarely do. But her power faded as her children walked away, one by one. She was left with her perfect house, her perfect mask, and no one left to believe the lie. And me, I'm still healing. Healing is not a straight line. Sometimes the old guilt creeps in, sometimes the old fears whisper in the dark. But I remind myself, I chose freedom, I chose truth. And in that choice, I broke the cycle. This is my story. Not of the family I lost, but of the life I gained when I finally said one small word: no.